For your Saturday evoking of spiritual change through words and creative artistry, tune in now for the creative inspiration with Chantel.
Have you ever really been at the end of your rope? Just felt like giving up and calling it quits? I mean, really tired of being sick and tired. I certainly have been there. No, I'm serious. So much so that I begin to live in abandonment of everything. My job, my family, my health, my finances, even my very own self and God. I wasn't raised that way, but I become that way. I become hardened, wicked, barren, and cold. I stopped caring. I stopped doing, and I even stopped being responsible for all the things that I knew to do right. I went left. What caused it, you ask? Life. So many situations began to arise, and I didn't know quite how to handle life anymore while it was happening. So I decided to go with the next best choice. I let go. I had settled in my mind it was the best thing to do. And in a strange way, I was right. I was a very small girl, about 6 or so, first time Auntie Dorinell shared Jesus with me. One morning, she was in the kitchen just singing about how much she loved Jesus and how she adored him. So I asked her, "Why you do, Auntie Dorinell? 'Cause why you love Jesus so much?" She looked at me with that smile upon her face, and she said she love him 'cause he started it. He loved her first. "How you know that he do, Auntie?" She said, "Well, child, he forgave me 'cause I still on this side of heaven. I can still get by with no help. I still in my good mind, and I still got my measure of health. That be enough for me to believe that him love me. What say you?" I agreed that him must do love her since he done all these things for her. And later that night, I find myself pondering Auntie Dorinell's words about Jesus and all these things him done for her. That's when it come to my mind that him done them same things for me, and that him must love me too. That was a huge revelation for such a small girl in that moment. That seed that Auntie Dorinell planted that day would see many seasons in my heart as I began to live out life on my own, including the season of harvest. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, I vividly remember my mother coming home in a drunken stupor. I could hear her talking to a gentleman outside my window, so I rose from my bed and headed down the hallway to greet her. Once she closed the door and caught view of me, she reprimanded me for being up that time of night, and she told me to turn my little narrow tail around and head back to bed. Just as I was about to carry out her instruction, she stumbled and fell upon the ground. I was petrified and I rushed over to her, help her up and onto the couch. She was reeking of alcohol and cigarette smoke. She stared at me for a moment, then she swat at me, telling me to leave her be. I offered my assistance one last time before she yelled a swear word to me and told me to go to bed. Before I could get around the corner good, I could hear snoring coming from her direction. That was the first time I recall praying for her like Auntie Dorinell had taught me. I asked God to forgive her and to help her get free from the alcohol and the cigarette and the men so she could spend more time with me and my sister. Things were good for a little while, but Tabby just couldn't let go. The streets called her and she had to answer. The balance of my tender years on up through my adult life was spent loving on Jesus and his people, I was excited about him, and my ultimate desire was to share Jesus with all the nations. I had experienced liberty associated with being in relationship with God, and I wanted to offer that same opportunity to as many as I could while I could. What I was doing was hard work, and I was enjoying every moment. Felt like I was on the right track, you know. Then one day, I come face to face with an instance of peer pressure that would change my track. I had gone to visit with a few of my friends that I hadn't seen in a few weeks. While we were hanging out, I was introduced to and had my first encounter with drugs. They made me feel like what I was doing was a big deal, you know. And in that moment, I believe it. I fell for the bait. When all was said and done, the next morning, I wake up sick as can be, physically and spiritually. After I get all the bad stuff in me out, I still had to deal with the fact I had messed up something bad. I had let a lie trump the truth. I was disappointed in myself, and I was sure that God was too. Over the course of the next few days, shame began to settle in and consume me. I find myself toiling on the inside and convinced that somehow the Father couldn't forgive me, like Him didn't have the capacity to forgive my transgression. Now I was too afraid to even ask for forgiveness. Before long, I began to spiral into a very dark place at a rapid speed. I started dabbling with the drugs more often and started being with different mans and such. And as I began partying and drinking, snorting and smoking, and indulging promiscuity, I was moving farther and farther away from the me I used to be. Only I didn't know it at the time. Sometimes I halt to the mirror and failed to recognize my own self. But I couldn't stop. I continued right on down the path of self-corruption. One night, I received some devastating news about somebody I love with all my heart, and I lost it. I act just like I've been raised in a barnyard with no home training. The magnitude of the pain was just too much. I started acting out violently, and you know, that night, I cursed God. I was so angry with Him for what had happened, you know. I was hurting so deeply and I didn't know how I would ever get on the other side. How I will come back from this. I kept repeating that to myself over and over and over again. And that night, I consumed so much poison into my body I almost died. When I come to, I was in the hospital bed, bound. There were so many people standing around talking over me, but for some reason, I couldn't make out their faces, nor could I understand their words. Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe I wasn't. Auntie Darnell held my hand as I approached the casket at the funeral. I was paralyzed. As I gazed down in there, all I seen was me as my mama lay there. It felt like the walls was moving in close on me. I struck her face with the back of my hand. She had battled for so many years. In her marriage to the street, she had suffered much violence and tremendous abuse. Seems she was on a quest of some sort. She loved so hard, but I don't think she ever received it back like she gave it. At least not out there. Now she lay here, a young woman of 53, lifeless. The anguish I feel on the inside was indescribable. The weight of the ache was so intense I couldn't cry. In that instant, my heart became numb as I walk away, knowing that I would never see her again. Her death sobered me, at least for a little while. My sobriety lasts long enough for me to get married, start a new job, and have a beautiful baby girl. But by the time she's 5 years old, I had relapsed. But this time around, I had more at stake, so I had to be careful. I was discreet and still functioning in my mind. Surely my husband had no idea, and I was still the best thing that ever happened since sliced bread in my daughter's eyes. I had deceived myself into thinking that I could have the best of both worlds. But in the end, at what expense? That's what I didn't consider. What would it cost if my husband found out that his wife was a junkie? What would it cost if I could no longer help provide for my family? Or what would it cost if I could no longer tuck my little girl in at night because she was no longer in my custody? Unfortunately, I would find out that those costs added up to be more than I could afford. My husband had noticed my changed behavior long before he confronted me. You see, he quickly picked up on my symptoms because of a past encounter of a similar nature. He spent many years trying to help his sister fight this same kind of battle. Till this time, he still carried the weight of her suicide because he hadn't been able to stop her before she got to that point. When he asked me if I want help, I was still in denial. I told him things weren't that serious and that I didn't need no help. Similar words that his sister had spoken in time past. And in his heart, he had decided that he didn't have the energy or desire to fight in that way again for someone who wasn't willing to fight for themselves. He resolved, and I agreed, that it was best that he take our daughter and himself to his parents' house for a little while until I had time to sort through my issues and make some serious decisions. His closing of the external door to our home that night triggered something on the inside of me that caused me to further indulge in the wilderness of my past. After consuming close to a fifth of vodka, I decided to venture to a pub not far from our home. I was feeling empty and reckless, hoping to find something to fill that void in me that night. And after my third drink, a young woman come and sit down by me after ordering her drink. She began to engage in casual conversation with me. As we began to exchange stories, the similarities were almost unbelievable. Almost like she telling me my own story. We talked for a while and she even made me laugh a little. She then said something to me that would sober me a bit. She asked me a seemingly simple question. "Why are you here, Grace? You don't belong here." How did she know I didn't belong here? And how on earth did she know my name? I was perplexed. As I rose from my seat, she lightly grabbed my arm and she said, "Grace, he still loves you. You can be forgiven. They're waiting on you to forgive yourself." I abruptly excused myself. As I made my way into the ladies' room, I began to hyperventilate while sobbing uncontrollably. That just happened. Who was she? And why was this entire encounter impacting me this way? I could feel my knees about to buckle, so I began to slide down the wall, succumbing to all the emotion on the inside of me. In that moment, on the floor in the ladies' room of the pub down the street from my home, I let go. Let go of all my past hurt. I let go of all my past mistakes. I let go of all the negative imagery I had created of myself. I let go of all of my disappointments. I let go of all my insecurities. And I let go of unforgiveness. And for the first time in a long time, I just begin to talk to God. Lord, you know all that I've been through. Every struggle, every situation, every failure. I made mistakes and I stumbled along the way. I've been brokenhearted, I've been hurt, and I've been dismayed. And I've even been an extension of that same pain. All of that kept me from praying to you, seeking you for guidance and instruction. But I'm here now, God, surrendered, broken and brokenhearted. I don't want to live this way anymore. I know I turned my back on you. I know that I disappointed you. And I know that I hurt you. But I'm here now and I repent. And I am seeking forgiveness. I want to find my way back into your presence. I want to find my way back to the safest place in the whole wide world. I want to be in your will again, Father. Reconcile me to you. Restore the joy of my yesterday. Renew my hope in you, Lord. And right there on that floor, I experienced the peace of the Father like never before. It was so intense, it was almost tangible. I slowly began to rise from the floor and proceeded to the sink to wash my hands and my face. As I exited out of the ladies' room, I walked towards the bar in search of the young lady, but there was no sign of her. As I head towards home, I make the decision that I was ready to fight. I was ready to fight for my marriage. I was ready to fight for my sobriety. I was ready to fight for my relationship with my daughter. And I was ready to fight in any other battle that decided it wanted to show up. I had just received some power from on high and was ready to activate it. I arrived at the house only to find that my husband and my daughter had returned. As soon as I opened the door, my husband embraced me and apologized for abandoning me during this low point in my life. He told me that he realized that he had enough fight to help me win this battle. I began to share my encounter with him and told him that I was ready to seek help and I was ready to right my wrongs of yesterday, marching with boldness into my tomorrow. I reassured him that tonight, on the floor, in the ladies' room of the pub down the street from our house, grace redeemed. I think we can all find ourselves in Grace's story and that we have been the recipient of redemption. She could have easily settled to be a product of her environment, even after she encountered right, but she decided to do otherwise. She decided to activate the fight that was always on the inside of her. And we have to make the same choice. We do not have to be imprisoned by our past. God is loving and He is merciful. Our past is just that, the past. Its expiration date has come and gone. Let it go. Once we release that weight, we can walk with authority in our present and freedom for our future. We can rest in the fact that the Father loves us so much that He provides us redemption through the unmerited and undeserved favor better known as grace. Ephesians 2 verses 8 through 9 says, God saved you by His grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it. Though it cannot be earned, and there has not been a price tag established to purchase, the Father has made it available through our faith in Jesus. So trust and believe that God's grace is sufficient.
Seems like all I could see was the struggle. Haunted by ghosts that lived in my past, bound up in shackles of all my failures, wondering how long is this gonna last. And you look at this prisoner and say to me, son, stop fighting a fight it's already been won. And I am redeemed. You set me free. So I'll shake off these heavy chains and wipe away every stain. Now I'm not who I used to be. I am redeemed. I'm redeemed. All my life I have been called unworthy, named by the voice of my shame and regret. But when I hear you whisper, child, lift up your head, I remember, oh God, you're not done with me yet. And I am redeemed. You set me free. So I'll shake off these heavy chains and wipe away every stain. Now I'm not who I used to be, because I don't have to be the old man inside of me, 'cause his day is long dead and gone. Because I've got a new name, a new life, I'm not the same, and a hope that will carry me home. I am redeemed. You set me free. So I'll shake off these heavy chains and wipe away away every stain, 'cause I'm not who I used to be. I am redeemed. You set me free. So I'll shake off these heavy chains and wipe away every stain. Now I'm not who I used to be. Oh God, I'm not who I used to be. Jesus, I'm not who I used to be. 'Cause I am redeemed. Thank God, redeemed.
Thank you for tuning in to Creative Inspiration with Chantel. We pray you've been inspired and strengthened. And until next Saturday, be encouraged on the journey. You may contact Chantel at www.kingdomliteraryworks.com.